My name is Benjamin Vickers. I'm the founder of Honeycomb Bread Bakers, which you see behind me. We're a naturally leavened artisan bread bakery specializing in sourdough, baguettes, challah, bagels, artisan pastries right here in downtown Lakeland, Florida. Like many young people, I had an insatiable sweet tooth. I would sneak in and get chocolate chips from my mother's pantry in the middle of the night, which I think is relatable. And as a college student, I had a hobby of baking for myself that just took over more and more of my life until one day I woke up and said, I should just do this now. And I enrolled in culinary school up in New York, the CIA in Hyde Park. The rest is kind of history. I just moved up and down the East Coast working in restaurants and bakeries, and finally made it back down to my hometown where I was able to open Honeycomb. The name is actually a baker's term. When you have a beautiful loaf of sourdough and you slice it in half, you get that whirl pattern of all the bubbles in the crumb structure. And when you have really lovely lacy fermentation, so like a nice even crumb that's not too dense, not too open, that's called the honeycomb. And so it's kind of like a play on words between all of our bee and nature and flower iconography, and then a bread baking term. I particularly love bread baking because it's a very kind of quiet sort of intensity. It's a very physical task where we interact with these living products of all of these microorganisms that are in our living dough. And I like the kind of quiet patience that's required. It's a very zen task. And also every day, it's very incrementalistic, where every day you have a chance to be one tiny bit like more improved. And it's kind of a solitary study in how to incrementally get better and better. I would say we're a pretty good mix of New American style and Eastern European style. A lot of my family comes from England, and so I just grew up with, fresh bread, croissants and baguettes and sourdough, and I just have that certain aesthetic that I think is a little bit refreshing here in Lakeland or in America in general. And so I try to bring things that people have maybe heard about, but never actually tasted for themselves. Like, you would be surprised how many people have just never had real bread before, and they only know what is from the grocery store in a cube shape that is already pre-sliced. And there's a whole wide world outside of that, and I'm trying to, week by week, introduce them to that. It's funny because a lot of our clientele is either very young or on the older end, like retirees come in and they're looking for something out of a memory. They have this memory of walking up a hill to this German bakery and being like, oh, I used to love that when I was little. And so they're coming in with like a very nostalgic sense. And then the very young people, which have never had real bread before, that's really fun because they taste it for the first time and they're just like, I didn't know this was a possibility even. They didn't know it existed. And so it's nice to have both ends of that spectrum. We're really known for our bread and baked goods, of course, but we're trying to venture out into more lunchy stuff. And so we're doing a honeycomb mac and cheese, which I'm really excited about. It's like really ooey gooey, like giant noodles, so it just like feels like a lot in your mouth. And it's full of Havarti, Fontina, and Gruyere cheeses. And once we heat it up, it gets like a kettle chip topping, so it's like the gooey on the inside and crispy on the outside. And then we pair it with, well, you can really get it with anything, but my favorite way to do it is with our side salad, which is like fresh spring greens with a pomegranate vinaigrette and little red onion and grated Parmesan cheese and some candied pecans. So things that we always will have, and there would be torches and pitchforks if we never have this, is things like our fresh hand-rolled bagels. We typically have at least 3 varieties, and we do like our house-made schmears with that. Schmears, for the uninitiated, is just like cream cheese with stuff inside. So we do an awesome honey pecan and a garlic and herb schmear. And then on top of that, we can do like a fresh smoked salmon for a lox bagel with like the salted radishes and the red onion and the chives and the dill. It's amazing. As far as breads go, we always have country sour, and it was a really big deal to start doing it every day of the week, besides Sunday, Monday when we're closed. We always have country sour. On the weekends, we have a ton of different types of sourdough, like the marinated Kalamata olive sourdough, the braided challah, the French baguette. Every once in a while, if you're lucky, we do a dark chocolate cherry sourdough, which is really good. And then a lot of our favorite, I guess, plated menu items are gonna be our tartines, which is stuff on toast, basically. And our avocado on sourdough is quite unlike what other people are doing, so I definitely recommend that. But I would say the dark horse, the thing that I wish everyone ordered, was the heirloom caprese bruschetta. It's like fresh tomatoes, and we use like the little sweet heirloom cherries. And fresh basil, which we grow here in our garden outside, and balsamic vinaigrette, olive oil. It's like so simple, but just so effective. The garden was something that I could get really hands-on with, and something I'm really proud of. It's about half ornamental and half edible. So one of my favorite boxes is Happy's Place Farms, which has a flourishing pepper tree. I don't think any of us thought it would do that well, but it is absolutely busting out. And we have some turmeric and fresh ginger in the garden. We grew some pea pods, and I just saw some nasturtium that they put in there. We have baby sunflowers, lots of zinnias in the box next to it, fresh basil, oregano, rue, and rosemary. And a lot of the other things are ornamental, like marigolds and flowers like that. When you're starting to build a business from scratch, it's about making sure you have the right capital without going into too much debt, and making sure that you have the right infrastructure, that you can reasonably do what you need to do without outgrowing your situation like right away. Growth has been one of our big challenges, is making sure we can meet the demand while still not having to do a ton of new investment in bigger, better infrastructure. We've actually been really fortunate in that we were able to get a nice big building. We are invited to share the space with 27 Paper Goods, which is on this side of the building. And so divvying up resources was like a really big key factor in us moving to a brick and mortar space. But I think ultimately, any entrepreneur just comes to a point in their early career where they have to decide to make that big risk and just go for it, or to keep it more of a hobby or a side gig. And honestly, it was never a question for me. I always had a pretty clear vision of what I wanted to do. And so when the opportunity came, I just took that leap of faith, and that was it. From the very beginning, kind of collaborative relationships have been kind of in our DNA. We are looking to be kind of a gathering space for people that are either artisans or just care a lot about what they do. And so we've been really proud to partner with a lot of local restaurants, either through our wholesale network, like Cobb and Penn, Concord Coffee, Hillcrest Coffee, Nutwood out in Winter Haven, N+1 in Winter Haven, the farmers markets both in Lakeland and in Winter Haven. Those partnerships are something that we've been really proud of. And I think a great example of that is on our retail shelf, we were the first business to sell all 3 of our local coffee roasters under one roof, which took a long time to set the groundwork for that. And I think it's a perfect kind of crystallization of that spirit of collaboration and togetherness, where it's not necessarily we need to divvy up territory in Polk County or anywhere. It's that we can all find success what we're doing, and it can become a tide that rises all the ships. I'm really happy to partner with even many of the other local bakers, like No Guilt does a lot of our gluten-free baking, Baked Lakeland does our cheesecakes and some other stuff for us. So that was just always in our DNA, is to be working with people and seeing how we can build partnerships rather than an ivory tower.